I'm Melissa Shanahan, and this is the Velocity Work Podcast, episode number 40. This podcast is for attorneys who are running their own firms. We explore tactics, tools, and stories related to pushing past simply lawyering well and into building a successful firm. Working in your firm and working on your business are two very different things. This podcast focuses on the latter. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of the Velocity Work Podcast. I'm excited to be with you for a solo episode today. We've had a couple of interviews lately, 2 or 3 in a row, but this is going to be just you and I. Before we dig into today's topic, I want to make sure that you are aware that I'm teaching a class on May 20th. It's called How to Trade Being Busy for Actual Results. Go look at the landing page. I have some bullets there for this class is a great idea if you experience X, Y, and Z. So go take a look and see if it makes sense for you. I have a hunch it will, and this is an opportunity for you to get some one-on-one teaching time from me. This is the stuff that I talk with real clients about during their retreats and with coaching. And I'm trying to find a way to deliver it to you so that it is digestible and actionable without having to work one-on-one with me. There is going to be an offer at the end to work one-on-one with me just for the month of June. And I think that's going to be super fun. I'm pretty sure there's only room for 5 people because I'll be giving my one-on-one attention so heavily. But even if you don't take me up on that, the content here is something you can totally use just in your day-to-day in terms of your approach. So don't miss it. It would just be silly to miss if you are interested in making sure that you're prioritizing and focusing on the right things and you are working towards results, not just being busy with a lot of to-dos and tasks and activity. So go sign up there, velocitywork.com/results. Now, let's talk about today's topic. It's called, what I'm calling it is constraint. I've heard a few people talk really great about this. One was a business leader named Todd Herman, and I love listening to him talk about it. Since then, I've heard a few other coaches talk about it. And I'm telling you, if you apply this concept of constraint to your life, and if you have an appreciation for constraint, it speeds up how quickly you get results. And the reason I wanted to talk about it this week is because I'm coming off the heels of, as many of you maybe are, the heels of Ernie Svensson's Law Firm Autopilot Virtual Bootcamp. And I got to tell you, what a quality event that was. I know that any of you listening that attended that, it was worth every penny. And he did such a phenomenal job of bringing a really great group of speakers together and a great group of participants together to have an amazing experience. One thing I noticed from that, which is not uncommon when you have any kind of seminar or boot camp or conference of any kind, there's a lot of information that you could take and go implement. And it's all good. A lot of it's great information that would be really useful, but it's kind of hard to know where to start and how to make headway on anything because it's almost like you've been given this buffet of information. And what do you do with that, right? So I thought this was a really appropriate time to talk about this concept of constraint. Here's the deal with constraint. When you constrain down your focus to one singular thing in terms of what you want to get done in terms of results, you will move much more quickly and you will have a sense of completion on that thing. And then you can pick the next thing and can really practice constraint around that one thing and really go at it and get it done. Now, as an attorney, day to day in the operations of your business, there are plenty of things to be focused on. And I'm not pretending that this one thing that you're going to pick is the only thing that you can work on day to day. That's not true. And I know that's not true. But what is true is that there's a lot of things to do in terms of lawyering, and you're going to have to do that. And I do think that, on episode number 4, I talk a lot about productivity and how to be productive and some tips and keys that that work, period, that work, but it takes some discipline. So I highly recommend that podcast episode to give you a bit of structure and a bit of framework. And even if you don't implement it to the nines, maybe you take one or two takeaways from that podcast and you sort of up your game in terms of productivity. And then once you're good there, then you implement a little bit more. I'm telling you, if you operate that way, you will surprise yourself at how much you get done. So there is this idea of productivity, right? With the things that we have to get done. But when you want to make big headway with things that are new to you, they aren't recurring things that you're working on. It's new headway you want to make. And for people listening to this podcast, that typically is meaning when you're working on the business, there's some things you want to make headway around. When you get information to make big headway and it's something you want to implement, and let's say you have 8 things in front of you, like that would be amazing to implement and to master and get under my belt and get good in the business. You can't focus on all 8. And I know that sounds obvious, but what we do, this is what our brains do because we're human. We have these 8 things sitting to the side on a list, and we know that they're there and we have the best of intentions on like getting to those 8 things. And we don't really take very great action. Where if you would constrain down to one, pick one that feels the most appropriate to work on first, or the most urgent to work on first, or the one that excites you the most, pick one. And then you work backwards to figure out what you need to do in order to complete that thing. And then you go for it. Now, this is a bit of a preview into one of the things I'm going to be talking about in the class, because we could easily, which I will in the class, dig into what that looks like to reverse engineer. But that's not what I want to talk about today. What I want to talk about today, and the point of today's podcast, is practicing constraint. If you practice constraint, you give yourself the ability to move much more quickly towards the completion of that thing. When you don't practice constraint, you are watered down over a bunch of different things, and or you procrastinate, or something sits on the shelf and you just don't touch it for a long time. And so the point of this podcast, and what I really want you to take a look at in your own life, is where are you not practicing constraint? Where are you spread too thin in terms of focus and interests? And the more, if you have something you want to achieve, the more you can whittle down to that being the focus, then you will make better headway. And I'll have people say, okay, well, I've constrained down to 4 things. I'm like, okay, let's hear how that's going, right? That's not constraint. Practicing constraint is one thing. And I'll even have people that are like, no, 2 things. I have 2 things I'm going to constrain down to. And I will really I'll encourage them to look at the upside. Like, what's the upside of constraining down to 2 things? Constraint is, I want you to think about constraint as one thing. Now, if you get super advanced and you start crushing things with constraint, focusing on one thing, then open yourself up to 2 and see what happens. But don't start with 2. If you really want to do this, if you really want to dive in and get results with something, and you want to knock it out of the park, and you want to do it as quickly as possible and as efficiently as possible, then you need to focus all of your drive and your energy with that thing, like just with that one thing. When I meet someone who wants to focus on 2 or more things at the same time, and I'm talking like make headway on things they haven't done before. It's projects that they've had sitting on the sidelines that they're like kind of fed up with themselves that they haven't gotten it done. And they're like, okay, I'm just at this point, I'm going to do it. I'm just going to get it done. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do both. And I'm going to schedule time in my calendar for both. And I'm going to go for it. That doesn't typically work out well, despite your best efforts and your best intentions. Your brain will tell you that that's a good idea, and you've got to learn that you need to override that default voice from that your brain will, that signal that your brain gives you. You've got to learn to override that and practice discipline to constraining down to one thing. I just had a conversation recently with someone, an awesome entrepreneur, law firm owner. We were talking about these 2 areas that he wants to create results in, like these 2 areas that he wants to make headway in or just take care of, right? Get completed. One of them was an online course, and the other was some efforts online just with how he's ranking in, I think, this was my understanding of it, how he's ranking in terms of Google search. And so he had some things he knew he could fix and work on there to improve it. Well, okay, so he's got these two things. It started just as one when we first talked. He really just wanted to finish the course. Like he just needed to, it wasn't going to take a whole lot to wrap up what he had built. And so I asked him, once he brought in this like second thing that he wanted to focus on, and I was like, okay, let's think about this for a second. How many hours would it take, do you think you would need in order to get that course done? Like done and out the door. And I think, I don't know, I can't remember for sure, but I think he said 30 hours. I'm like, okay, good to know. So then I asked, how many hours a day or how many hours total would you need in order to really make headway and improve to your liking this initiative or effort with Google search engine stuff? Like, that's not my wheelhouse, people. And he said, I think he said about the same, about 30. So, okay. Then the important thing that I wanted him to make a decision on was, let's think about this. How many hours a day do you have to give to really digging into one of these projects? And he said 5 hours a day. I'm like, okay, so you have 5 hours a day to really solidly focus on one of these. And each one's about 30 hours. So in 6 working days, you could have done that course that's been sitting on the shelf and you've been wanting to finish for so long. And then 6 days after that, you could have tidied up the things you wanted to have tidied up in terms of SEO and all of that. So you could just get a sense of completion with one and then the other, or you could water things down and both are going to take longer, right? Like you could get to the idea would be maybe you spend 2.5 hours a day on one, 2.5 hours a day on the other, and they're both kind of simultaneously happening. And the theory is that, yeah, we'll like get them done maybe within the same amount of time as if I split them up. But here's what I know for sure after coaching people for so long. That is not the way it works. And so I encouraged him to really look at this, and he gets to make the call, right? Like I'm not going to tell someone what to do. But when you really think about this, your brain makes it sound like a good idea to spend time and focus on both. But the truth is, when you focus on one thing, you move much more quickly. It's like you are immersed in it in a way that allows you to experience some velocity, and you get this sense of completion much more quickly. And that sense of completion is not to be underestimated. I know that there are many of you listening to this that just don't even know what it feels like to have a sense of completion. And I want you to understand that this could be one of the main issues. This could be a reason. This is probably a reason why you don't experience a sense of completion with things. And it's because you're too spread thin. Now, if he chooses to do both, he chooses to do both, and there's a way that he needs to approach his work, and he will, hopefully get both done. But I think there's a really good chance that he would get done one sooner than he thinks if he just focuses on that. And then the next, maybe sooner than he thinks if he just focuses on that. There's so much research out there. If you've read Deep Work by Cal Newport, he goes into this quite a bit. There's so much research out there about the cost of switching from one focus area to the next, that there's a cost, there's a loss there in terms of productivity and time, because it pulls you out of the deep work of one, and then it does take some time to sink into the deep work of the other. So even if you split it up 2.5 hours and 2.5 hours with whatever you're working on, it's not 2.5 hours of focused work in each. You get robbed of some of that because of the switching cost. So it's just not worth it. And if you want to get into the nitty gritty of it, you would really enjoy that book, probably by Cal Newport. It's fantastic. It changed the way I work for sure. It had a heavy influence on the way I work and on the way that I approach work with clients. But this is essentially everything we've been talking about on this podcast. This is what I want you to give thought to. Where can you practice constraint? it's not going to feel good to make that call. It probably won't, because it feels like you're neglecting so many other things by focusing in on one. But I'm telling you, if you focus in on one and you make that the thing that you're going to make headway on outside of your in the business work, you will get there much faster. You will experience a sense of completion, which gives a boost of energy around, it's motivating. It makes you want to go on to the next thing and on to the next thing and on to the next thing. When you're watered down across many things and it seems like it's so hard to get something really fully completed, that's not motivating. And that's when procrastination kicks in more. That's when we tend to, we seek pleasure and avoid discomfort, right? Like we avoid the discomfort of just making headway on things, and we go eat snacks and make phone calls or goof around on the internet, or instead of getting busy. So constraint provides your brain with a way to get focused, a path to get focused. When you eliminate all of the other options and you've got one left, that's what you go for. And when you do that, you blow your own mind. So I really want you to take this concept and apply it to your work. And just in case if I think I meant for this to be read between the lines, but this is for on the business work is really what I mean. You can apply this concept anywhere to anything, but for the sake of this podcast, what I'm talking about is on the business work. So you have your in the business work that you are doing and needs to be done and needs to stay on top of. That's not, I mean the time that you're going to spend, the precious time that you're going to spend outside of that work on the business. Be very constrained with what you're focusing on. And it's not going to feel good, but it'll be worth it, I promise. So I hope you enjoyed this topic, because this is a game changer for people, and this is a game changer in terms of how you operate. This is something I'll be talking about a little bit more in depth in the class, and additional things and tips that to help you be able to implement this really well in your life. But coming off the heels of that virtual boot camp, I know what it's like to have this buffet of information now that you've received. That's really great information. And you need to decide how you're going to prioritize and what you're going to sort of chink off your list of results that you want to create based on what you learned. And the more you constrain down, the faster you'll move through that list. So I highly encourage you to practice constraint, and you will begin to love the practice of constraint once you see what it provides you. All right, that's what I've got for you this week, everyone. Thanks so much for tuning in, and I will talk to you again next week. Hi guys, it's me again. Thank you so much for listening. If you like this podcast, you probably understand that growth requires results, not just staying active. If you want to learn how to build your days around getting results, I'll show you how in this zero fluff class that I teach. Go to velocitywork.com/results for registration information. I cannot wait to see you there. If you want to hang out with us on social, come on over to Instagram. Our handle is velocity.work. And on Facebook, it's facebook.com/meetvelocitywork. Cheers, my friends, to real growth and a great life. Show notes from this episode can be found at velocitywork.com/podcast.